Yo, what is good everybody? It's Unbeatable Jacob, and today I am making this video to inform some MyTeam players on exactly what each individual dribble style does. We're going to be going over these 6 very basic type of dribble packages: base, fundamental, power, quick, shifty, and slasher. And I'm going to show you exactly what they all do and how they affect your movement from every sort of angle and every sort of move in this game. So I have this all put on my player right now. The reason why I'm doing it on my player is because I don't want any of you guys to get confused with a certain type of animation. So I put just the most general, normal type of SIGs on my player, the most common ones we see in MyTeam, which is pro size up with Kobe escape. So I'm gonna go ahead and also show you guys a quick guide on some of the dribble styles that are named after certain players, which are just stealthily clones, dribble styles of dribble styles already in the game. And I'm going to show that on the screen right now. The first one's going to be base, and I'm going to show you exactly what base looks like right now. Okay, so we are in the Pro-Am arena with my player who has base dribble style. Base dribble style, in my opinion, is probably like the 4th or 5th best dribble style. It's not very good, and it's not going to look nearly as bad on my player since this is a point guard and he has a ton of playmaking badges like Hall of Fame quick first step. So the first thing to know about dribble styles is it does not affect the way you push the ball up the court. So if you're running like this isn't going to be affected by dribble style much at all. Where dribble style comes into play is if you're doing a standing dribble move and then you burst out of it. So for base dribble style, the burst going to the ball hand side is not good. The burst going opposite ball hand side is not that bad. I'm going to show you right now. So if you were to do a standing size up crossover to your ball hand side and burst, you get a load up animation where your player stops and then decides to go. And this is a problem for me because when you do your crossover size up and then go, it gives time for the defense to recover. If you're to do a backwards escape and then go, your player gets a load up animation and they do not burst very far out of the animation at all. Base dribble style, if you do happen to use a card that uses it like Baron Davis, you're going to want to try and go opposite ball hand side on your burst as much as possible because you get this animation right here, which isn't nearly as bad because you don't get that stun animation where you stop and load up. So if you're going opposite ball hand side, it's not that bad, but there's a lot of moves like the backwards escape where you can't. So if you're gonna sit here and do like a misdirection, you're gonna wanna try and burst out of it opposite ball hand side, because as you guys can tell, going opposite ball hand side like I am right now is a lot quicker than if you're to go ball hand side. You guys can see that little stun animation right once you go there. When you try and go to the ball hand side, your player stops and then goes, which gives the defense time to recover. And I'll show in-game examples with specific MyTeam cards at the end of all of these types of very generic reviews of each dribble style. Okay, so we're in here with power dribble style now. As I mentioned, this isn't going to affect what type of dribble moves you do. It's going to affect the way you burst out of those dribble moves. So if you're going to do like a misdirection or a backwards escape or an explosive behind the back, none of that is affected by your dribble style. What is affected is which type of animation you get when you burst out of those moves. So just like base, power is pretty bad because when you do any sort of move and try and burst ball hand side, you get a load up animation which gives the defense time to recover. Just like base again, if you go opposite ball hand side, you get a decent enough animation that gives you a fighting chance of getting by your defender. As you can see right there, it's just like base. It's kind of a low type of crossover all in the player box, and it's not the fastest in the world, but it's a lot better than if you were to go ball hand side, because when you go ball hand side, you get that load up animation as you guys can see right here. But when you go opposite ball hand side, you at least have a decent enough chance of getting by your defender, especially if they're already trying to kind of guard you to the opposite side of where you're gonna go. So just like with base, if you have this dribble style, try and avoid doing backwards escapes into ball hand side, try and avoid bursting ball hand side, and just keep it all right here where you're going opposite ball hand side, because that's pretty much going to be your only chance of getting by your defender. Okay, so we're in here with one of the most interesting dribble styles, and that's Fundamental. Fundamental is interesting because you don't get any type of speed burst animation, but you also don't get any load up like we have seen when you go ball hand side with the last two dribble styles. So the Fundamental, if you were to just do a crossover and go ball hand, your player doesn't get any burst animation, but you're able to start your run animation with no load up at all. Fundamental was actually very good pre-patch because you could kind of like zigzag back and forth with it, but now without being able to burst laterally, it's kind of tough to use the same way that we were able to before, but it's actually not too bad. It really isn't, because you're able to just start your run animation right away. It's very good if you have a defender that's slower than you guarding you, because you are already going to be fast enough as is to just blow by them while going ball hand side. If you go opposite ball hand side with Fundamental, it's pretty much the same as like power or base. It's not bad at all. They keep the ball very low. It's just a low in the box type of crossover where they get it and go. But the good thing about Fundamental compared to base or power is you do have the option to burst ball hand side or opposite ball hand side and still have a chance of getting by your defender. So when you're using Fundamental, a lot of times I think it's not the worst idea to just go. Like, don't worry too much about comboing up. Just try and catch them off guard and just go. Okay, so now we're in here with Slasher. This, in my opinion, is the worst dribble style. Yes, you are able to do every sort of move with it. As I've mentioned plenty of times now, you can do any sort of standing dribble move just fine with it. It's not going to dictate that, but it's going to dictate the way you burst out of these animations. So we talked about the load up with both base and power dribble style. When you go ball hand side, Slasher gives you the longest load up when going ball hand side out of any dribble style. So if you're to do a crossover and then run, you get a whole like half a second wait before you can even go. See, when I do a crossover, I'm going, and now it lets me go. You guys can just see it. The player pretty much basically stops, holds the ball, and then allows you to run. So this is not a good dribble style to go ball hand whatsoever. But if you're going to go opposite ball hand side, just like the other ones we talked about, it's actually a better animation going opposite ball hand side than both base and power. Is they kind of keep the ball a little bit more outside of the box and you can get going downhill a little bit faster. So if you're using Slasher dribble style, I just recommend avoiding doing any sort of standing dribble moves that's going to give you any sort of burst animation, and I would just keep it all to like explosive behind the backs. That's pretty much exclusively what I would do with Slasher dribble style, and if you get caught, go opposite ball hand side. That's pretty much the way you use Slasher dribble style, is just keeping it all with explosive behind the backs and then opposite ball hand side bursts. Because any time that you're gonna try and go ball hand burst, they're gonna have plenty of time with that little stun animation right there to catch up. So don't ever go ball hand side with Slasher. You can sometimes get away with it with base if you have a way slower defender on you, but even if you got quick first step on Hall of Fame like my player has right here, you're gonna get that load up animation and it's gonna be incredibly hard to get by your defender. If you do like a step back and try and go ball hand side, it's not as bad, but any sort of like misdirection or crossover or backwards escape, you're gonna get a pretty bad load up animation. And mind you too, my player has like 1 million playmaking badges, so this doesn't even look as bad as it does on somebody like Wade or LaMelo in the game right now. But you guys can just see when going ball hand side, your player essentially fully stops before it lets you go, and that's just how Slasher is. So like I said, just try and keep it into just standing dribble moves into explosives. If you're going to do a step back, go opposite ball hand side, and yeah, try your best to use what I consider to be the worst dribble style they actually sometimes give to players. Okay, so now we're to the two dribble styles that are actually good in this game. These two dribble styles, we're going to start with Shifty and then go to Quick, are by far the best because you get a speed burst animation when going ball hand side, and you can also quick stop out of them. I won't touch on that too much. I have another video from last year on the Quick and Shifty crossover, or Quick and Shifty quick stop, but I will mention it in passing a couple times here. So this is Shifty, and Shifty is actually very different than Quick. In my opinion, and I think the consensus opinion is Shifty was better last year than Quick, and this year Quick is far better than Shifty. So we've talked about how this stuff doesn't affect any sort of standing dribble moves. That is true, but what it does affect is the way you burst when you're going opposite ball side hand or ball side hand. So with Shifty, you can see you get the burst. Okay, we haven't seen this on any sort of dribble style we've used yet today. You get the burst no matter what move you do. If it's a misdirection, you get the burst. If it's a crossover and you go ball hand side, you get the burst. Compared to Slasher, where your player would essentially stop before letting you go ball side hand, Shifty is going to give you the ability to actually speed burst and get the quick first step animation when you're going ball side hand. That's the exact same ball side hand burst that you get with Quick, but what is different when you go opposite ball side hand? When you go opposite ball side hand with Shifty, you get this long crossover animation right here, where the player throws their arms way out, takes the ball way outside their player box, and then goes. Last year, this opposite ball side hand Shifty burst was probably the best move in the game, and this year it's still pretty good, but not as good as Quick, and we'll go over that later. But just know with Shifty, this is by far the second best dribble style because you can at least get a burst when going ball side hand, and you can also quick stop out of that burst, and you also get it out of the backwards escape. You know, you get the burst out of the misdirection, and yeah, it's simple as that. The quick stop just looks like this. I don't want to go over that too much because that's a different story for a different day. The only dribble styles that you're able to quick stop out of are Shifty and Quick. I wasn't even able to get it there. The timing for the quick stop is going to be pretty different in like the Pro-Am facility than it is compared to like a MyTeam online game. So my timing's all out of whack for the quick stop, but the actual 21 next gen quick stop is only able to be done with Shifty and Quick. And essentially what you do for that animation is right once you get your burst animation like that, right once they dribble the ball, you just let go of everything and shoot, and your player is going to stop dead in their tracks and shoot the ball. See, I missed the quick stop window right there, but I could definitely do it consistently out of a backwards escape like that. So yeah, Shifty, second best dribble style. The difference between this and Quick is all related to the opposite ball side hand movement, because when you go ball side hand, you're going to get this burst regardless whether you have Quick or Shifty. But when you go opposite ball side hand like this, you get that long Shifty crossover. People call that the Shifty crossover, and you can just tell it's always the Shifty crossover because your player throws his hands like all over the place. You can see him like take his opposite hand that's not being used to dribble the ball and like throw it up in the air. And you can do that out of like any sort of dribble move. So if you do a step back and then go opposite ball side, you can do it. If you do a crossover, go opposite, you can do it. If you do an escape, go opposite, you can do it. And that's Shifty, the second best dribble style in the game. Here we are with the best dribble style in the game. So I talked about this quite a bit when covering Shifty. You also get the speed burst animation with Quick. It's arguably a little bit faster with Quick than it is Shifty. I don't see the difference, but when going ball side hand, you get that burst animation that we were talking about for so long, and you're able to quick stop out of it just like you are with Shifty. The difference between Quick and Shifty is going to be the opposite ball side hand burst. So we saw the long Shifty crossover where the player threw his hands out. I liked that more last year, but this year I think Quick is far better because this is the opposite ball hand side animation. There's really nothing to be said. If you guys have ever played me, you know I pretty much rely on this because you can do it out of anything really. I love to do it out of the step back. And you can just see the burst animation when doing opposite ball side hand with Quick is incredibly quick. Incredibly quick. So we were talking about how with base going opposite ball side isn't the worst thing in the world. it's nothing compared to quick. And then also when you do decide to go ball hand side, you can get the burst animation. So I'm sure if you've watched this whole video, you can just tell that the movement with this is far better than any other dribble style. Maybe arguably Shifty if you really like that long Shifty crossover, but quick is where it's at this year, all because that animation right there, when you go opposite ball hand side, is just dumb fast. You can see the burst animation off of the quick crossover is just very, very quick. If you do a misdirection, you can burst out of it. If you do a backwards escape, you can burst out of it. A step back, you can burst either direction. You can go to the ball hand side like this and get a burst animation, or you can go opposite ball hand side and get the quick crossover. But I truthfully believe your best chance of getting open in this game is through a quick crossover, just like that right here. Boom, boom. That's the best way to get open for a three-pointer, for a dunk, for anything. You can sit here and spam this type of move until you're open all day, and the only thing that's going to happen is maybe they'll get a pluck on you. If they don't get a pluck, you're eventually going to get open. This is the best way, just sitting here spamming this right here to get past the CPU. If somebody's going to off-ball you, it's the best way to get a rim run. It's the best way to get a dunk, in my opinion, outside of like the backwards escape. Like these moves right here with quick dribble style are by far the best moves in the game for a chance to get open. I mean, you can just see the way I'm moving with quick compared to the way I was moving with big dribble style or Shifty or even Fundamental, any of them. You can't do any of that opposite ball side burst that I'm doing right now with quick. With Shifty, you're able to do the burst going to the ball hand side like that, but the long Shifty crossover just isn't what it used to be. This is what reigns supreme for dribble styles today in my team. Okay, so I'm here with Brandon Jennings to show big dribble style because my player isn't even tall enough where he is not allowed to use big dribble style. I have nothing to say about this dribble style. You can't burst with it. It's like Fundamental, but he almost, I don't know, dude. Just look at it. Just look at it, man. Like, when you try and burst ball hand side, it makes you dribble the ball again before you burst. I had no idea this exists, but you're not even able to do an explosive behind the back with this dribble style. I always thought explosive behind the back was strictly tied to ball control. Apparently it's not, because even though Brandon Jennings has very high ball control, I'm doing the inputs to do an explosive behind the back right now, and it won't let me. If you go opposite ball side hand, it's the same thing. This is the only dribble style in the game where you get a load up, no matter if you go ball side or opposite ball side hand. This is by far the worst dribble style in the game, as it should be. It's called big. But right now, I'm trying to do the inputs to do an explosive behind the back, and that's the animation I get. If you guys are very new and don't know what an explosive behind the back is, it's this. Anybody on the game that doesn't have big dribble style and has over an 80 ball control can do it. Brandon Jennings with a very high ball control can't even do it. I have no words. That's how he's moving. Big dribble style should not be on anybody on this game unless they're over 7 foot and it's like pre-250, because this is just absolutely pathetic. Like when you try and burst ball side hand, see, I start my burst right now, like right here I start my burst to go, and they make you like dribble the ball again, like boom. It's big dribble style. It shouldn't be on anybody besides 7 footers because it's absolutely unusable if you're trying to like get open and playing against somebody who even has the most small amount of stick. I have nothing else to say. It's the worst dribble style in the game, and the fact that it's on Brandon Jennings is incredibly disrespectful. Okay, so this video is already like 20 minutes long, so I'm going to keep this a lot more brief than I thought I was going to have to. If you guys want to see a video on how to get open with each individual dribble style, let me know. If these are well-received videos, I'll make videos like that more often. But if you're using slasher, base, or power, here's what you're going to want to do. Is you're pretty much going to want to call for a screen, and no matter which way they hit the screen, you're going to want to go opposite ball hand. So as we can tell right here, he's user controlling the defender, going towards the screen as he thinks my player is going to be going ball side hand. Since I'm using a player that has power, this also applies for players with slasher and base. I know I'm going to get a load up if I go in that direction, so I instantly go the opposite way and get the wide open dunk. But the difference is between that and quick and shifty is with quick or shifty, you're going to have the opportunity to go either direction. So right here, I'm going to do the push crossover with quick, and now I'm going to get him back going the other way from going opposite ball side hand to ball side hand, and I'm able to quick stop into the 3. So that's just pretty brief on, you know, the way you're going to want to see things. If you have quick or shifty, burst either way. If you have power, base, slasher, or fundamental is a weird one. We're not going to count that. You're going to want to go opposite ball side hand. Simple as that. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll be back soon.